Start as customary with our reading of our Constitution. Get right into the subject matter. Subject matter today is from our Moorish literature. Think this over, you Moors. That's what the prophet wanted us to do. He said, if I can get you to think again, you can save yourself. And he gave us something to think about in that speech. And it just heavy in my brain to bring that speech to us today. So I'm going to get started with our Constitution. Salvation, Allah, unity. The Moorish Science Temple of America. The Divine Constitution and Bylaws. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended into his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live life accordingly. Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era in time now, and all men now must proclaim a free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live in the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Ali, through the guidance of his Father God, Allah. Islam, Islam, Islam. So first I want to rise these vibrations and give all honors and praise to Allah, the almighty, eternal, incomprehensible, creator, author, and governor of the world. For Allah has instituted the laws of the government for the world. He made the laws. through his noble prophet, Drew Ali, who came to on his swords to teach us our nationality and divine creed at a time when we thought we was Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian, etc., Indian, so many other names that we still are conquered by. And he had a forerunner that we give honors to, and he's our John the Baptist, just in the days of Jesus. And his name was Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And I love his middle name, Mosiah, because it comes from Moses. And he did indeed lead the people and show us how to prepare an organization, the UNIA. And he did tell the people to prepare for the coming prophet. All honors to our Moroccan flag that's been documented to be 10,000 years old. This flag represents the 5 highest principles known to man. That green 5-pointed star: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And most of the gang culture today adopted those principles. You will see that in a lot of today's modern day gangs, that they got their education and they understanding straight from these principles that we use in our government. And all honors to this American flag made by the Americans, given to the Europeans, that they adopted so they can do business on the shores of Northwest and Southwest Africa, presently known today as America. All honors to these things. All honors to our supreme staff in the Mecca, Chicago, Supreme Grand Sheikh, Kenu Umar Bey, and to him upholding the charter so we can have an organization to rightfully assemble and to solve some of these problems that we are faced with today, and put me in position through chain of title to step up to speak to the people and play my part in solving some of these problems. All honors to the Grand Sheikhs in California. See Cynthia Smith-Ill, who first recognized me and brought me into the Moorish Science Temple of America. It was through the motherly love of this sister who brought me to love, to understand these 5 principles by seeing the merits of my work. All honors to the supreme staff of our body politic, our grand body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. All honors to the good members we have here that's on your way to be faithful members, which is the highest title you can earn. But it takes you have to be a good member first. And what it takes to be a good member is just the seeing a vision, making your meetings, sacrificing your time, sacrificing those distractions that's in front of us every day, that's being advertised and marketed to us. So all honors to everybody on this call, because you indeed are a good member on your way to be a faithful member after this orientation. Like I said, today's subject matter is the Moorish literature. This comes out your Moorish guide, just to give some background history on this Moorish literature. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali believed in having his own media outlet. And he believed in spreading a message to the people every week. And that I find to be still important for us to have our own media outlet. That's the only reason I haven't given up social media. Because it's one of our only avenues of a media outlet. Had it not been for the social media, I wouldn't have known you good members. So the media outlet is very important. So I want to read one of the most important speeches I feel that he left us. because we only have bits and pieces left from our noble prophet. But he meant business. He never smiled in the picture, so I know he meant business. As long, you know, that's a sign of a serious person when they don't bust no smiles and no pictures. Gangsters do that. You never see Al Capone or, you know, some of these gangsters never smile in their pictures because they was on business. And our noble prophet was definitely on some business. He wasn't nobody to be played with. So the prophet said, if I can get you to think again, you can save yourself. And to me, that statement and the oral statements and prophecies that he made, that it hit me different. Because my whole life, I was brought up in Christianity. I was brought in the concept of a savior was going to return to take me out of the injuries I was seeing every day. So it gave me a sense of ease to know it was going to be okay one day because this great savior was coming. And it made me passive. It made me passive aggressive because I didn't take accountability to fix the problems that I was seeing every day. The poverty, the generational poverty that we suffering from. And when I talk to people, it still dawns on me to this day from when I was a young man, like at the age of 12, I recognized that we was in a generational poverty. And our people still do not recognize this generational poverty that's plaguing us. And that's because the European has done such a great job at disguising this poverty. He give us pay rates that allows us to enjoy, you know, our fruits of our labor. But we don't recognize what generational poverty really looks like. And I'm going to describe, before I go into speech, just 3 things that I have recorded that generational poverty actually consists of. And this was from a doctor, a psychologist, that I overheard a radio speech on KTSU in Houston. And I agree with this message. Because what they said was generational poverty looks like this 3 things. You was born without land. You never had land inherited down to you. So what did that mean? We pay rent our whole life. We pay mortgages our whole life. We pay leases our whole life. I never owned a house myself. Never, to this day. I'm still working on that. I grew up in apartment buildings in Chicago. And growing up in apartment buildings, you think everything's fine because mother goes to work and pay them bills on time and you got a roof over your head. You got electricity, running water, and food on the plate. But it never dawns on you that your conditions can be better. It never dawns on you until you see the European. When I first started hanging out with Europeans, it was the first time it dawned on me that it was a huge difference on the way we lived. They had 4-wheelers and on their land and boats. They had their own ponds and lakes. They go fishing right in their backyard. They go hunt right in their own woods, gain their own food. And it was a total way of different living. I grew up in like a environment where we had none of those things. So that's the first key to recognize generational poverty. It's that you didn't inherit any land. And you paying rent and leases and mortgages. That means you're in poverty. The second way that the doctor said to recognize you in generational poverty is that you work for a pay rate or salary. And I said, wow. Everybody I know do that. And the thing is that we never recognize how valuable our energy truly is. That our energy is the true currency. And your energy, man, it can produce so much. And they rob you of it by giving you, say if you've made $40, $50 an hour. In 1 hour, you can make $1 million. You can produce so much things in 160 minutes of your time. And then they found a way to reduce us from those pay rates to give us some even less by instituting the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment says involuntary servitude is a crime, except for it's illegal. Sorry if I'm misquoting it. It's illegal except for the punishment of a crime. And I said, wow, they said involuntary servitude. So our people volunteer for servitude. And that's when we go into service. We serve people for pay rates. That's voluntary servitude. But then they found a way to criminalize our culture. They made everything we do illegal. That way, they can put us in a penitentiary and we work for even less. I did time in the penitentiary. I did 3 years. And I witnessed this for my own self. That you can work 40 hours a week at the same institutions like they had us working in like IBM, AT&T, these same institutions that would pay you $40, $30 an hour. You was working for $200, $300 a month. A month. That was barely $50 a week. And then when you get out of that institution, those same corporations would not give you a job because guess what? You had a felony. So the pay rate scheme is one of the greatest schemes they ever played on us. And that's why I took upon myself to educate myself on credit. Just like in a song of like Jay-Z brought to us, he said, you know how the Jews took over? Credit. And they said he was anti-Semitic. Same way that brother mine works, I share some of his thoughts, what I agree with, the way he lived his life or whatever. But some of the messages he brings is very vital to our people. I tell people all the time, Kanye West, Rihanna, and Jay-Z are all billionaires off credit. But by us not understanding credit, we think that they actually earn $1 billion. And it goes to show you when Kanye West went through this this whole thing about Adidas, and they say now he's not worth $1 billion. Well, he wasn't robbed. He wasn't sued. So how did he lose half his earnings? It's because it was based on credit. I followed Rihanna situation when she had become a billionaire. And what happened was Jay-Z put up $1 million and started what I call like a credit group for her, where he brought in investors and they actually raised $100 million for the sister. And off this $100 million, they was able to secure a loan. It's called secure loans. So they secured a loan for the sister for $1 billion based on an idea the sister had with her business. I think it was a makeup business or something like that she had. So the sister was able to create products and use the product line as her collateral and use the $100 million that they raised for collateral for her to be worth 10 times as much. So while we working for pay rates, the European works on credit. And that's what the United States of America, Great Recession is upon us, is that their credit system has failed. What we call the Federal Reserve note, it's a debt note. And when I learned about credit is that credit is debt. It's no separation. Because anytime you go, say, for a real life situation, example, anytime you go to a car dealership, you get a car loan, they extend you credit. Off the credit agreement, you go into debt. So they let you know that it's synonymous. It's the same thing. Credit and debt is the same thing. If I give you credit today and say, look, I give you 10 of my books, you go sell them and bring me back the retail price on that or wholesale price on that. And you pay me on the back end, what did I do? I gave you credit, but you in debt to me. So us having a proper education on credit will help us to first get land, and secondly, take ourselves out of these institutions that's putting us in voluntary servitude, because we volunteer for the servitude. And the third way that the doctor said, to recognize we're in generational poverty is that you never witness anyone in your family get paid off just education. And I thought about that. I said, what do you mean by somebody don't get paid off education? Meaning we don't value education. So when you tell a person, oh man, study these books, learn this type of things, they never seen an immediate return on their studying. They never seen the benefits of studying to turn into something tangible as like finances. So we never seen somebody study a book and then get rich just off information out of a book. So by you not seeing that, it automatically puts your mind in state of mind and say, I have to work to get rich. I have to go out here and learn a trade to get rich. When that's not true. That's not true at all. Like I say, you can educate yourself on credit. You can educate yourself on a financial system, financial literacy, and become rich in this system. So those three things is the basis of our generational poverty. And when I mean generational, I mean we passing this right down to the next generation. So if we don't come together and solve these generational poverty issues, then you putting that problem on your next generation. Because those three things they would never see and never inherit. Now, the doctor gave us a remedy to that, and that leads us to the speech. He said, the only remedy to solving generational poverty is a mentor. I said, what do you mean? A mentor, right? But he said a mentor is different than a teacher. Because a mentor is somebody who done all these things and can show you how to do it. So I said, wow. All honors to my noble prophet. Because he's our mentor. He's the brother who came and not just taught us something, but he mentored us by showing us the way. And they try to hide that fact by only giving us bits and pieces of what this brother's true life was about. How many people know that Prophet Noble Drew Ali was rich? He was a rich man. He was a very rich man. And I have evidence of that because the brother had a chauffeur. And the chauffeur became a Supreme Grand Sheikh after he died and claimed that he was a reincarnation of Noble Drew Ali to trick the people. But I say, man, if he wasn't rich, how can he afford a chauffeur? I don't know nobody in my time that can pay somebody right now to drive them around all day long, other than just catching an Uber every now and then. But actually having a paid driver is evidence of a financial status. And also, it's other evidence of that in this speech that I'm going to read to you, that he lets people know that you can borrow money from me and that you got any type of debt, come to me, Noble Drew Ali, and I'll solve that for you. So it's these bits and pieces we have to piece together. Because the prophet said this in his oral statements. He said, a beggar nation can never reach its highest degree of spirituality. Now, if you dissect that and break that down, what is a beggar nation? First of all, a beggar nation is actually a group of people in history that's an actual organization that believe that Jesus was poor, so that we supposed to live poor because Jesus was poor. And I have evidence out the Holy Bible that that was false. Jesus was not a poor man. He was actually a rich man himself. The evidence of that is that he rode on camels. If you know anything about back in the day in camels, everybody couldn't afford a camel. A lot of people walked. So to be able to afford a camel shows, just like the prophet had a chauffeur, it shows that a certain economic status they was at. So the European has become rich by convincing us that we should stay poor. So we have to reverse this thinking. And the reason why is because it takes finances to uplift this nation. I can't expect my good members and faithful members to help me buy land and schools and build institutions if we all in generational poverty. So I'm proposing ways to stop this generational poverty. This is what I'm here for. This is what my mission and message to the people is. Not just to talk about it, but be a mentor of it. Get myself out of generational poverty and then show others how to walk the same walk. Because that's how we're going to lead the people. We're going to lead the people by being mentors. And everybody's not going, they're not going to see it. A lot of people is going to die. J.P. Morgan, Chase Manhattan CEO, said we only had 6 to 9 months before this great destruction is upon American people. They making videos. I'm watching on the YouTube, and I'm sure on the international news that say this Great Depression that's coming is not just going to affect American people, but when American people get affected, it's going to affect the whole world. This whole world, they all are talking about it. They all are preparing for it. So the prophet said, finance uplift the nation. So we finance cars. We finance houses. Finance is credit. And the people are truly the issuers of the credit. That's why you can do a 1099 OID, because you are the original issuer. A lot of people say we're creditors, but that's kind of false. Because if you're not manufacturing a product and giving out credit, then you're not a creditor. But you are an issuer of the credit because they're using your energy as surety for your own credit contracts. So you are the issuer of the credit. That's a higher status than just a creditor. So I want to talk about this speech made on Friday. It was a holy day. He made this February 15th, right after Valentine's Day in 1929. This was just February to August. That's what? 6 months before his assassination. This is out your Moore's literature. And the reading is number 6, page 7, if you have your Moore's literature book. And I shared it in the group chat for those who don't have it. So the prophet said this. Think this over, you Moors. All sheiks, grand sheiks, must prepare for the prophet before he comes to visit them, must see to it that all is clean and in perfection as far as comfort is possible, or otherwise don't arrange to have his presence. All members should pay from 25 cents to 50 cents weekly towards the emergency fund. This fund will increase so that it will soon amount to the grand sum of 1,000. That is, if you are loyal Moors. The emergency fund goes into the bank. The treasurer will tend to the responsibility of seeing that the money is in the bank. Yes, and under the name of Moorish Science Temple of America Finance. When needed, act according to the law pertaining to the procedure of performing an emergency act. So just to dissect this before we go further, because I like to have a clear understanding and not just read things just because we read them. The prophet only spoke lawful money, for one. Anytime he spoke, always take notice, he spoke in coins. 25 cents, 50 cents. In his day, they had 50-cent pieces. It was in rotation. Those are not in rotation anymore. You can still probably find them and get them, but they're not in rotation. So take heed that he wasn't talking Federal Reserve notes. Take heed to the dollar sign that he put in front of 1,000. It's two types of dollar signs in America. One being a dollar sign with two lines through it, and one a dollar sign with one line through it. Now, signs and symbols for the awakened mind. Now, if you research what this dollar sign truly is, it's called the Spanish coin. Okay? So the prophet was speaking lawful money. Now, the prophet in this talks about an emergency fund. Now, a fund is a trust fund. So the prophet was speaking on setting up a trust fund called emergency fund. Now, the prophet was sent here to warn us for destruction. So he's preparing us for emergency, because the emergencies is definitely going to be needed. We're going to have preventive measures when the Great Recession hit. And if we don't have emergency fund, we have nothing. The prophet spoke on a treasurer in this speech. So this is positions that you don't find in the divine constitution and bylaws, right? But the prophet is speaking in a way to let you know of additional positions that we need. We have to have our own treasurer, just like the United States have a treasurer. The prophet also spoke on putting it in a bank under the name, of the Moorish Science Temple of America Finance. So the prophet spoke on this as in, we shouldn't be putting anything under the name of an individual name, a straw man. So the prophet is demonstrating knowledge of trust funds. And he demonstrates knowledge of putting things where it protects your assets, because that's the purpose of a trust fund, to protect your assets. So by putting it under the name of the Moorish Science Temple of America Finance, demonstrates that these funds will be protected. Okay, so I'm going to continue reading. No head of any said temple is to borrow from any member more than $5 to $10, unless by notification of the prophet, the necessity for the loan. When any said temple desires to purchase property, they must first notify the grand body or the prophet, and it must be purchased under the name of the Moorish Science Temple of America or Noble Drew Ali. An individual name should never be applied. I, Noble Drew Ali, am responsible for all finance. So therefore let I, the prophet, know what is on me. So let's break that down. The prophet is speaking on group economics at its highest degree. That we, first of all, can come to each other for loans, not going to the European institutions for loans. This is the reason why he spoke in the first paragraph of us putting together funds weekly together to go into a trust fund. Then increasing that fund to $1,000 a week. And we talking back in 1929, before inflation even hit. So just imagine how much $1,000 lawful money is worth today. So the prophet was speaking on, maybe, I'm just estimating, at least probably $10,000 a week. We should all be able to put together. Now, that makes me think, like, how did the prophet expect the people to spend $10,000 or $1,000 at that time a week just to put together in a fund? And you got thousands of members. So he must have a financial plan for his people. And indeed he did, but you don't have too much evidence of that. When I traveled to the Mecca and I talked to the elder Moors, they tell me about the prophet having warehouses and having his own businesses and things that you never heard of. Now, also in this second paragraph, he says that when we purchase property, it must be done in the name of the Moorish Science Temple of America or Noble Drew Ali. Because people fail to realize that both of these names are trusts. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a trust. The sheiks are the trustees. Noble Drew Ali, the name itself, is a trust name. And you can find evidence of that in your 101s where they put his name in all capital letters. Now, us by having education now on what all caps mean, it represents an entity. So Noble Drew Ali created an entity called Noble Drew Ali. That wasn't his holy name. His holy name was Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali. His given name, straw name, was Timothy Drew. So he's once again demonstrating trust fund. And then once again, he showed us that he will be responsible for all finance. So he's responsible for all the credit. So he himself had to be a wealthy man to say that this statement, I'm responsible for all finance, so therefore let I, the prophet, know what is on me. So he took accountability to step up and say, look, you ain't got to go to the European for any finances. And he also said the head of any temple shouldn't borrow from the members, because it should be in reverse. The members should be borrowing from the heads of the temple. The heads of the temple should be in a position as they own banks. Every Moorish Science Temple is the individual trust, is the individual banks. And we should all have our individual emergency funds for our individual temples. So I'm going to continue to read. Prophet said, some of you have slipped and slipped drastically. So you had better lace up your shoes before I get there. Everything, every business transaction or anything pertaining to finance is to be transacted in the name of the Moorish Science Temple of America or Noble Drew Ali. We Moors must maintain a grand treasurer, just in the days of our forefathers. Then you are a nation. Until then, you are nothing. So the prophet put a charge to the members. He put the responsibility on the members. He said that the members had slipped drastically, first key note. So that means they wasn't about their money. They was slipping on the finance department. Then the prophet said that everything should be transacted once again in the name of Moorish Science Temple of America or Noble Drew Ali. That's to protect the assets, right? Then the last statement said, we Moors must maintain a grand treasurer, just in the days of our forefathers. Then you are a nation. So a lot of people say the Moorish Science Temple was some type of religious organization, and that was the intent of Noble Drew Ali. That was not his intent. His intent was to make us a nation. See, a lot of people say, oh, we a nation just because we melanated and we all got the same bloodline. The prophet lets you know, if you don't have a grand treasurer, you are nothing. See, he was about business. Our prophet ain't play. He ain't sugarcoat. He had confidence in the truth. I'm going to continue reading. The emergency fund is issued by no book, but an emergency card punch according to contribution, then marked on book. That is the law, and the law must live. The government is behind me, and I must get behind you. For I must uphold and enforce the law. My mission is to save you Moors. So now he's giving instruction. Okay, now, so you'll understand how to transact this emergency fund. It should be issued by no book, but an emergency card punch according to contribution. So what he's saying is by book, meaning accounting records. So this is not an account we setting up or accounting records. This is about contribution, because accounting means that we have accounts payables, accounts receivables. And then that would be considered like a credit or something that you would get reimbursed for. The prophet said this is contribution. So you contributing towards the emergency fund, and you should have a card to show your contributions. So every time you contribute, you should get some receipt for it, basically, in the form of a card kept on file in your temples. So he's giving us instruction on how to carry this out. That way nobody can say, well, I contributed and didn't contribute. Because it's people who want to take from the movement but don't want to contribute anything. It's people that's going to come and say, man, I paid my dues, ain't paid nothing. Ain't helping us in the finances, you ain't helping us at all. We can sit around here and say Islam all day. We can sit here and read this Quran all day. But until we have a grand treasurer, we have nothing. I'm going to continue reading. The heads of all temples, grand sheiks and grand sheikas, must conform to the divine principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. They must live the life among the members and be loved, even as the prophet is loved. They must not practice the principle of segregation among any group in his or her temple. Let it be he or she that is the head of any temple of the Moorish Science Temple of America, that if there should come any grievance that cannot be settled by the head, notify the prophet at once. So the prophet was speaking on certain things because in 1929, after running this organization for 16 years, it was a split in the temples. The temples were split between those who became heads. He appointed heads. They took off and started their own temples. You had some women practicing segregation, just like you do now with this, I call it the feminist movement, where you have women saying that, we don't need the man, or we should be rulers of some sort. When at the end of the day, we all in this together and we need each other. So if we separate men from women, which the European has given us this thought, then how can we solve these problems? We need the sisters. And you see the prophet name Sheikesses. So this is not a male-dominated organization where you see every other organization where women can't have a leadership role. So there's no need for segregation. There's no need for women to get out here and say we got our own temple or we got our own thing going on without the help of the brothers. There's no need for that, because men and women, we have to come together to fix this problem. The Quran gives instructions first to the readers. It says, dear readers, don't corrupt these lessons. Then it gives instructions to the mothers. Dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones, because the mothers are the first teachers. Then it gives instructions to the father. It said, dear father, by these lessons, you can set your household in order, because the father is the law. He is a law enforcer. If you read Act 1 of our divine constitution, it says the Grand Sheikh is empowered to make law and enforce laws. See, one thing I recognize by just and being in a household with small children and women, the woman is the law of the child automatically. Even in the Quran, it says this. But one day she would no longer be the law of the child, because one day she's not going to be able to enforce that law on the child. See, Act 1 says the Grand Sheikh has to make law and enforce law. So this is why we need each other, because you can't make no law that you can't enforce, or it's not no law. All laws have to be enforced, because if somebody violates, you have to punish them. And if you can't punish, then how can you make law? And that's where the sisters, I feel, is not really recognizing that, of course, yeah, you can be a empress or a ruler, but you're going to need each other to enforce this law. A good movie that I suggest all sisters and brothers to watch is a new movie called That Woman King. I love that movie because it shows the woman being empowered side by side by the brother. At the end of the movie, he appointed the woman a king because she was able to enforce law. And she was able to see vision that the brother didn't see. So that's the type of prophet we had. He put the sister side by side with the brother, Grand Sheikh and Grand Sheikh, as he said in this paragraph. So it's not like a male-dominated organization where you see in the other organizations, not to speak radical on nobody organization, but that's the truth. You will see in the Muslim organization dealing with like Nation of Islam or the Arabic orders, they don't allow their sisters to have a leadership role. Certain Christian churches don't allow their sisters to have a leadership role. But this organization is not that. This organization allows anybody who's a leader and they can enforce that law. If you want to make law and you're ready to get out here and enforce it, then you can indeed be a Sheikess or a Sheikh. And that's what I'm here for. I didn't never choose to be a Grand Sheikh. I didn't never go to nobody and say, look, can I be a Grand Sheikh? How I be a Grand Sheikh? I was enforcing law as a faithful member. I was going to court and battle with the Moors, sitting in courtrooms, state to state, then getting on the social media and spreading the knowledge that I have to the people on how I was doing it. So the Grand Sheikhs, that's why I give high honors to my Grand Sheikhs in California, seeing me from across the globe on the social media and said, I want to make you a Grand Sheikh if that's something you feel you can handle. And truthfully, I didn't know what it entitled. Because if I knew it entitled, I'd probably been like, nah. I'd be like, man, I'm good as a faithful member. Be real. I mean, I tell people around me every day, I'm ready to give it up. But when you good members come in, you give me inspiration to keep going. Because my membership dwindled down to like a few. I only got one more right here showed up. Everybody come to take, but nobody come to contribute. I'm a resourceful brother. I got a lot of good resources. But that make me get used up. People want to use me for the resources, and that's cool. Just pay me what I'm worth then. But don't come in here and act like you want to help solve these problems, and you truly don't want that. And that's what I had to deal with being a Grand Sheikh. I had to see another side of my people that I'd never seen in my life. I never seen the true evil of our people. Because I always want to see the good in people. I always see the best of people, no matter if you're a killer, drug dealer, prostitute. I don't care what line of life you come from. I don't see that in you. I see Allah in you. But become a Grand Sheikh, I gained some wisdom. And if you look in your Holy Quran, wisdom is the knowledge of the higher self and the lower self. And I learned the lower self. And the lower self is the devil. And I seen the devil in my people. And man, it hurts me. It hurts me. It hurts me. It hurt. Like a bullet to my heart. But this is the things the prophet was speaking on. I'm going to continue reading. I know we're going past the time. I got the next meeting supposed to start. This is the last paragraph. The prophet said this. No member is to attend Adab chamber that has not lived a moral and clean life and has not paid his or her dues or assessment. Pardon yourself. Providing that he or she is working or able, cannot consider himself a Moor. But traitors must be excluded from the books after having fair trial by the head of their temple. And that must be sent into the grand body. And all members that are able to subscribe towards the uplifting fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. And those that are able and fail to act are not Moors, but traitors to that cause and trust in their nation, and are not allowed to share all the Moorish honors. And the penalty is, it is embezzlement of the faith of our creed. All heads of all temples must observe these laws by the prophet. So this is my mission. In this speech, the prophet spoke on the Adab chamber. If you're not familiar with the Adab chamber is, it's the AC of the MST of A. This Adab chamber is the silent brotherhood of the East. You have to get your red book to understand what the silent brotherhood of the East deals with. It's the difference between a silent and secret. We are not a secret organization, but we must maintain a level of silence because you have a right to remain silent. The Adab chamber is for you to become a government official. You can't be a grand treasurer and we can't trust you. You can't control the people's finances and you haven't been tried and true. Every organization, Masons, Christian Church, Nation of Islam have an Adab chamber, whether you know it or not. Now, the ADUP chamber is for those who have lived a clean moral life and paid their dues and assessments. So after you become a faithful member, what we're looking upon is people to become ADUPs. And an ADUP is somebody who know by heart certain your one-on-one keys and certain things that's given to us by Noble Drew Ali. If you look at the definition of an ADUP, it means somebody who's skilled in their religious organization. So the prophet spoke on people attending the ADUP chamber. So we looking for you good members to become skilled at these lessons, live a clean and moral life, and become an ADUP. And then he also spoke on traders. And he spoke on what a trader looks like if you ain't never recognized one. See, a trader is somebody who is able to do something but they fail to act. That's a trader. They can sit right in front of you with a fez on, turban on, and they don't contribute anything. And they have the means to contribute. That's a traitor to their own people. And that's what I was speaking on by saying, like, some of these rich slaves, these athletes and entertainers who've been trained to be traitors to their own people by them not even knowing it. The prophet said they're a traitor to the cause and trust. The trust we have. The Moorish Science Temple is a trust in their nation. That's our government, the free national government. And those who don't help us in this mission to uplift fallen humanity financially is a traitor, and they're not Moors. Those who claiming they Moors, everybody not a Moor just because you have the bloodline of a Moor. Because a Moor comes with a character. Because a Moor help another Moor. You just an Asiatic. That's what the prophet called those. He called them Asiatics. Those who, because Asia, if you look in the esoteric Bible dictionary, metaphysical Bible dictionary, Asia means someone who's caught in their old ways, in the old world, old way of thinking. So some of our people are still caught in that old way of doing things, old way of thinking, every man for themselves. So the prophet is speaking on group economics. Those who don't come together for group economics, those are the traitors. So this is something we must observe as becoming leaders, because that's what you are here. You Moors are the leaders, the guardians of the nation. So as you go on your travels, take heed to this speech and think this over. Think it over and over and over. Don't just take it for face value. Go into deep ADAP study of this. Break down any words you don't know what it means. Look at the day and time, what he's speaking on, and then apply it to your life. Because this prophet was assassinated 6 months after making this speech. So with that, I leave. I yield the floor. If anybody want to bring anything to the table, have any questions. Because I went way past our time, but usually the meetings are 2 hours, but orientation, we just going in 1 hour, just condition you to be able to start to make your meeting and schedule your life accordingly to this, because it's a great sacrifice on us. Pardon self, I think there's one of Moors outside. Islam, Moab. Peace and love. You outside? Okay, I'm going to send one of the Moors down and open the door for you. All right, peace and love. So think this over, you Morris, because if the prophet said, if I can get you to think again, you can save yourself. So this is what we're here for. So all honors to my good members on your travels to become faithful members in this 90-day orientation. All honors to you for keeping up with your necessity and paying your dues. Those are truly needed. So we keep the lights on. So we can keep doing this. So we can assemble. So we can have a brick and mortar to call our headquarters. Because all national governments have to have a headquarters. And just like I sent Musa Moore the book entitled Creditology, for $61 for the faithful members, you can get the play-by-play to fix your credit. My whole process I'm giving away because I'm retiring. I'm retiring from credit repair because I'm taking my finances more seriously now and put myself in a position to be a mentor. So I'm giving away this so you can put yourself in a better financial situation. The prophet said it takes 3 prerequisites for you to become a Moorish American in the Moorish Science Temple of America. The first 3 questions he had was ask you is this. Do you have pride for your race? Because race pride is needed. Do you love your race? And the last thing he asked us to ask you is, do you feel your conditions can be better? That's a major question because a lot of people are comfortable and content. And there's no wrong to being content and being grateful for what you have. But understand that our conditions as a whole, as a people, have to be better. And the only way we're going to make them better is uplifting fallen humanity. And it's going to take finance to uplift this nation. That's in the words of our prophet. So if nobody have anything to address on the floor, I would yield if anybody want to address anything. Islam, I'll teach you. Your phone, you on mute. You mute on teacher.
Islam, peace everyone. You can hear me?
Islam, you loud and clear.
You can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Islam.
Okay, cool. So last week you had referred to Acts 7. Refer to Acts 7 if you wanna know about being like a faithful member. And so I went and I read Acts 7 and it was talking about Stephen. And so I wanted to ask, because they were talking about like the land of Canaan. Is it Canaan or Canaan? They was talking about the Canaanites, the land of Canaan. And when I had looked up what Canaan was, it was basically saying that it was like a semantic speaking civilization, or the land of the Canaanites. And I thought it was very interesting because with Kanye and everything, and Stephen and Kyrie Irving, they was talking about how they anti-Semitic and things like that. So when I looked up the etymology of semantic, it referred to it said it was Arab, but then when you got deeper into the etymology, it said one of Noah's sons, his name was like Sem or Shem, and so that's kind of where the etymology of semantic came from. So I wanted to ask, when you talk about being like a faithful member, what do you derive from Acts 7? And then also, could you break down like kind of what was going on with Stephen in that time? Because basically the brother was a martyr. Like he ended up dying in the middle of him being in front of the council, basically prophesying that Jesus was the second coming of Moses, basically. And so I was just trying to kind of, I guess, digest it a little more because it's like milk to me, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm trying to break it down a little bit more, kind of get a better understanding of the
Now,
word.
okay. Now, when you say Acts 7, what are you referring to the divine constitution and bylaws?
No, I didn't read not that one. Not the Holy Quran. I actually looked in the Bible, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, okay. You saying the Bible? Oh, Acts, the book of Acts, what you speaking on?
Hmm?
Oh no, I wasn't referring to the book
We
of
talking about
Acts.
two different acts.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was following you, but I was like, man, I was lost a little bit. Like, what is he talking about? Like, no, but I'm versed in the Bible as well, because I said, I come from Christianity, and the prophet did teach out the Bible. But no, when we say a faithful member, we referring to the divine constitution and bylaws that I read before every meeting. Acts 7. So every one of these are an act. So yeah, that's what we're referring to. Acts 7, when it says all members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. So that's what I was referring to. Yeah, that's the Act 7 I was referring to. Yeah, because the Bible has nothing to do with our membership, but that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because what the Bible is based in numerology as well. So that's key that you just picked up, that Act chapter 7 deals with the Shemites, right? And we being descendants of the Shemites, it's not coincidence that they put that in Acts 7 in the Bible, and that you are the Semitic people that they're speaking on. So that's a great reference. So I want you, when you read the Bible, to take heed to those type of things, that every chapter 7 of every book has something to do with you. That's the secret of the Circle 7. And every chapter 5 as well. So you can start with, I start with Genesis 7. So Genesis 7, the book of genetics, the book of gene of Isis, deals with Esau and Yaakov, Jacob. And it talks about Esau having the birthright. And Esau being the firstborn. And then he was tricked out of his birthright. The story is about him being tricked out of his birthright by his own brother, Jacob, who was really Yaakov. And he was tricked out of his birthright with a red pot of stew after he worked in the field and he was thirsty and hungry. So that's actually the basis of their plan of what they're doing to us today. They trick us out of our birthrights, like I say, by us working pay rates and things like that. We're being tricked out of our birthright. And then we come to them because we're thirsty and hungry. But to order to receive their benefits, it's always some type of trade on your birthright. You have to declare yourself a U.S. citizen. You have to say you Black, Negro, colored. You have to confirm some way to their ideology. So just take heed to that. Like every chapter 7 of every book of the Bible, it's definitely a key chapter for you. So that's good you brought that up, because Acts is the law. So the book of Acts in the Bible is the book of laws. I use Acts, because Acts is like one of my favorite books in the Bible. So I go to Acts chapter 26. And chapter 26 deals with Paul. So that's actually a remedy for us in court, because Paul was brought to court. So what did they do with Paul? They took him to court without an injured party. So Paul said in Acts 26, I have the right to face my accuser. Then he removed the case to the highest court, called the Emperor Court at that time. So in today's terms, that's called no injured party. and removal of a case. So that's our remedy that the Europeans actually gave us in the European courts. Like anytime you catch a case in state court, your remedy is to ask for an injured party, which is the plaintiff. The plaintiff have to have damages. Now, the plaintiff is always, for my state, it's the state of Texas, or the state of whatever you in. So that cannot be a true plaintiff. That cannot be a person with damages. That's not an injured party. That's not somebody you can face. So the remedy to that is to remove the case, because we know we don't supposed to be in a venue. You see what I'm saying? So what we're supposed to be doing is have muftis, the grand sheikh. You're supposed to petition to your grand sheikh, say, hey, I caught a case. The grand sheik's supposed to send a mufti to remove that with paperwork, file paperwork, and remove that into our own Moorish courts. So we have work to do. But into the meantime, we remove it to the Article 3 jurisdiction. The mufti remove it to the Article 3 jurisdiction, which is the federal district courts. Now, I've done this procedure every case I caught. So that's what they call the ecclesiastical law. I'm pronouncing that right. I always say it wrong. But that's the holy law. That's God's law. And so take heed to acts. That's a great point you brought up. But yeah, we referring to the acts, the divine constitution and bylaws for being a faithful member. Is the highest title that we can hold in this movement, is being a faithful member. That means we putting in the work. That means you here contributing, you making your meetings, and we building and solving these problems together. And that's all truly what it is. Everything outside of that is just a position you plan in the hierarchy once you become an ADAP.
All right, then. Thank you.
You're welcome. No question is a bad question. Please ask all questions. Because so we'll know where to start healing you at. Because our people will perish from the lack of knowledge. That's what that Holy Bible say. Yeah, I get into that Holy Bible. I used to have Bible study. Just breaking that Bible down. That Bible is something deep and serious, for sure. Don't throw your Bibles away, for sure. But I yield the floor for any more questions. Okay. Nobody have any more questions? We're going to close out with the Moorish American prayer. So please rise. Feet at a 90-degree angle. Face the east, find the east. Heels touching at a 90-degree angle. Spread your wings. 5 to the left, 2 to the right. Repeat after me the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
The Father of love.
The Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My God.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through his holy prophet.
Through his holy prophet.
True Ali.
True Ali.
Amen. Amen. You can now be seated. Greet each other. Salvation, Allah, unity, Moors. Peace. Check in with me next Friday. Oh, yeah, special announcement. We are offering employment starting this week. Employment opportunities are available for the freight brokerage. We will have a meeting on that Monday, 7 p.m. So if you want to be a part of, this movement we got going on in the trucking industry, I'm training people. I've been a freight broker for 2 years. I was a truck driver. So we have a brokerage, and we getting industrious and trying to raise the finances of the people for the Moors. So just hit me up on the text or the group chat anyway. You want to reach out for that. Peace and love.